Welcome to the Two Stewards Show. There is no one who sits in front of a computer longer to research real estate in Canada than Daniel Foch. We know this to be true because somehow every one of his social media accounts posts something useful or interesting about real estate every 20 minutes, 365 days a year. So, is real estate in Canada still a good investment? Because for those who are feeling the pain right now, who may have bought a pre-construction condo in hopes of massive price appreciation and are just now learning what the word speculation means, or who have had to say goodbye to wonderful tenants who were paying juicy rents, only to find that the new tenants are still wonderful, but those juicy rents have lost their juiciness, or who have tried to get a development proposal pushed through the thick brick walls of City Hall, only to find their project caught in a web of sticky red tape inside. This time we talk rents, housing supply, multiplex policy, demographic collapse, having kids, AI tools, standard of living, and of course, Bitcoin. You can check out Dan's research-based podcast, the Canadian Real Estate Investor Podcast, wherever you find fine podcasts. Follow him on X if you don't want to miss a beat. And if you want to get in touch with the show, head over to twostewards.ca. Remember, this show is not financial advice, but is valuable for listening amusement purposes. And now, the state of real estate in Canada.
Okay, we're live. We want to welcome Daniel Foch to the podcast again. Thanks for coming on again and chatting with us, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure. I really enjoyed our first conversation, so I'm equally excited for this one.
Well, you're the first guest to ever say that. Nah,
I got my canned sound bites, you know.
Yeah.
That's the politician in me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, whatever happened? I thought you were running for prime minister. Is that next election?
Yeah, I'll probably wait till my kids are old enough to like defend all of the bullying that they're gonna get.
Yeah.
So maybe give me and I'm also like I'm like in my 30s, so I'm too dumb to be prime minister. I know they don't set the bar very high based on past stuff, but I think I need to be smarter for sure. I have a lot to learn, so probably my 50s. I think that's a good time.
Okay, yeah. All right, I'll give you some time. I mean, if we're still around, if Canada's still around,
true. Yeah,
you know.
I have faith. I think we'll do it.
So I know Brent had some Bitcoin questions, but I wanted to just talk a little bit about sort of the state of, the state of Canada, the state of the market. I mean, the housing market is, depending on how you look at it, right? It's not great, but if you're buying, maybe it's good. I don't know. Would you advise people buy real estate right now, like looking at long term, looking at Canada, looking at everything? What do you have any general thoughts?
My general thought is that it's always a good time to do a bad deal, and it's always a bad time to do it's always a good time to do a good deal, and it's always a bad time to do a bad deal, right? Like everybody wants to think that there's some like magic ability to time the market. There isn't, right? Like I spend more time thinking about this stuff and researching it than anyone that I know, and I would never try and time the market correctly. I would buy a great deal if I can find one, and I would avoid a bad deal if I come across them, which I very routinely do. So, you know, like early 2022 crash, we found like a couple of markets. Cornwall, Ontario is a good example. We're still buying, and the market's recovered quite well since then, and we have already done well on a price basis. I don't really care about price; I care about yield. But so you know. The answer to the question really becomes like, is there a benefit to holding real estate longer? And sometimes there is. Like if you're renting and you're absorbing the sunk cost of renting, and ownership would be cheaper and you can get a better return on investment by owning property than renting, great. If you can't, then it might make more sense to just continue renting or, you know, waiting with your existing asset. If you're investing in property and it's a good quality cash flowing investment, usually there's a benefit to owning that longer because it's paying down principal for you, it's providing cash flow for you, and the sooner you can get that return, the better. But if that's not the case, like if it's a primary residence or whatever, it becomes a little bit of a different story. So I can't really answer the question other than it's very subjective for very many people. And I would advise people to do the math and actually think about, you know, what can I what does it cost me? What's the cost benefit analysis on buying versus renting? Can I get a better return? Like, what are my historic returns? Most people don't know what their historic average return is. It's like, okay, well, if like you don't even know what you're benchmarking against, then if it's like, okay, let's benchmark against the S&P 500. If I put my money into the S&P, my down payment plus the differential that I would maybe save via renting versus buying, if I put that all into the S&P 500, would it beat this real estate investment that I'm looking at? Real estate investments are super easy to model, right? Take out price growth, and it's literally just a yield thing, and assume it grows at inflation. If that's a better deal, then do it. If it's not, then don't. Very simple, right?
Wow, I didn't know it was that easy.
Yeah, like in your model there, then like a good deal, quote unquote, would be yield, like strictly numbers based.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I just don't. I think if you're buying for prices to go up, you're a speculator, not an investor, right?
Well, because then what jumps to mind right away is the condo situation that's going on.
It's a good example. Excellent example.
Yeah, well, because like I don't know what went through those people's minds, or investors, I guess you would call them speculators, like when they're looking at getting into this. But maybe you could kind of walk us through, like, how is that not a good deal?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, at any given point, as soon as builders started trying to like capture the spread, let's call it, so builders started pricing properties. So let's go back to like 2017. 2017, you could buy a condo for like, I don't know, 5% more than the resale market. And the resale market was growing at 5-10% per year. And so it made sense. Then the resale market was growing at 10 to 20% per year, and buyers were willing to pay significantly more. And builders could only offer product for significantly more than market because construction costs had accelerated so much that builders would go and price a property at $1,200 a foot, and that was the cheapest that they could sell it for because of construction the way they were modeling the construction costs. And freaking buyers were paying $1,200 a foot, even though the resale market was $800 or whatever, right? And so they're like, oh, well, this is a good racket. Let's see how far we can push this thing. And then that had a knock-on effect on construction costs and whatever, and the whole thing continued to accelerate. But at any given point in time, once you were paying a little bit more for a pre-con product relative to a resale product, it was always a better deal to buy a resale product, right? Like there was never a point in time where it made more sense financially from a real investment perspective, speculation aside, to own a contract to buy something for more than it was worth in the resale market than it was to buy a resale product that was producing rent for you immediately on closing. And you could actually own a real estate investment, not own a options contract. So that's kind of how we ended up in this mess, right? Because then you have to unpack like what are the reasons why somebody might want to own the contract rather than the cash flowing investment. Well, maybe they don't want to be an investor. Maybe they don't intend to actually own the unit, right? Maybe they think they're going to flip the paper, which is the whole thing in and of itself. Maybe they can't afford 20% down, which is where a lot of problems started, right? I don't have 20% down to buy a condo right now, but I have 5%, and I know I'm going to have another 5% in 6 months and another 5% in 12 months. And so you spread out that deposit and lower the barrier to entry. And so this is where the wheels really started to come off the whole thesis, right? Because it was selecting for people who didn't actually have an interest in being real estate investors. Like if you wanted to be a real estate investor, you would have made a real estate investment. But they created a financial vehicle, like basically a financial instrument, an options contract on the future value of houses at ridiculous valuations, and a lot of people got burned.
It sounds. Man. What's that word that this kind of reminds me of? Bubble. That's the word.
We would call it a buble here, actually.
Yes, a Michael Bublé. Yeah. I mean, we've talked a bunch about that, but like just housing in general. What do you think the impact? A couple questions, I guess. So, impact of immigration on housing. And maybe also rental, right? We're seeing rental rates decline, and obviously in, the GTA condo market, rents are going to probably decline, especially, based on prices. But even in sort of the, I manage single family homes, and Brent manages a number as well, right? So I think we're both seeing rental rates are dropping, and Yeah, that's sort of hard to model out when you're looking at yield. But where do you see sort of rental rates going? I don't know if you look into your crystal ball, right? We're looking at
Yeah.
probably no net immigration in 2025,
Yeah.
possibly. And is that like the big factor, do you think, in rental rates?
Yeah, I think like, if you look at the correlation, I think Ben Rabideau posted a chart. Bank of Canada put it in their monetary policy report in Q1 of last year. I think it was Q1. They've like even the Bank of Canada has been saying, hey guys, like we probably should get this under control here, right? So, I mean, it's the correlation between population growth and rents is very obvious in both the data, but also just like it doesn't take an idiot to surmise that more people that are here on a non-permanent basis are people who are going to be renting, right? Like that math checks out. So if population growth drops to zero and is technically potentially negative because we have people, temporary foreign workers leaving, plus you have like stacking on top of that woes in the employment market, job losses that'll lead to more household consolidation. I think it's reasonable to assume that rents are going to continue grinding down until one of those variables changes. I think unemployment will probably hit its peak mid to late next year. I think population growth, they're going to come, once unemployment isn't rising, it's a lot easier to sell an increase in immigration from a policy perspective. But I mean, like they did make it their goal to get that non-permanent resident population down from 7% to 5%. So you can see like that's 2% of the whole population that they need to get rid of. And it's not that they're going to leave. They're probably, a lot of them are going to move over to permanent residence, and that will end up taking like, I think we have 350,000, 380,000 permanent residence spots per year. So a bunch of them go there. We see
Do
a little
those
bit
people
more.
then become like they shift from tenants to owners potentially?
Yeah, logic would kind of arrive at that conclusion. The question is, can anybody afford to be an owner? But yeah, I mean, you're far more likely to own a home if you have a permanent residency in Canada, and you can legally own a home if you have permanent residency in Canada. Like this is the other thing that people are discounting, right? Like only permanent residents can actually own houses in Canada right now until the end of 2027. I expect they're probably going to get rid of that policy. Like they'll let that expire. But so it's like, even like legally, if they wanted to own a house, they would have to pay they're banned from it actually, right? So they'd have to buy a fourplex.
Well, unless you have a corporation, right?
It's still like corporation has to be sub 10%, I believe, foreign owned.
Okay.
But we don't have a beneficial ownership registry, so there's like that's kind of a like trust me, bro, policy, right?
Which has worked pretty well for us so far. So
yeah.
I just saw the government is opening up sponsorship for parents and grandparents of new, well, whatever, of residents, I guess. So, I mean, because you're talking about getting those numbers down. I'm like, yeah, it looks like they're actually doing it. And then you see something like this, and you're like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know. I'm
yeah.
It makes you wonder what they are doing.
I don't think they necessarily know what they're doing, and I think that they're kind of trying to sneak in like a couple of things that they can. They're doing politics, right? So not to say they're trying to be sneaky, but I think they're trying to get away with as much as they can, and so without risking any kind of like really, I don't know, like anger from the base, right? So I think that one, like the logic makes sense there. It makes sense from a policymaker's perspective. I don't think it makes sense from a economics perspective. I think that their hope would be that the parents and grandparents maybe have more wealth than the younger people who moved here and savings accumulated, and that if they end up coming here by sponsorship, then they'll hopefully bring that capital into the country. But the flip side is the burden, where older people are much more of a burden on our infrastructure, such as healthcare, especially healthcare, which is already ailing, and we already have an aging population. So demographically, it really doesn't serve us a ton to get parents and grandparents into this country unless they're bringing cash.
Yeah, and no health issues.
This is a very diplomatic answer, Daniel. Much better than I could have done.
It's just a checklist, Do you have money? Do you have health issues? Okay, as long as you answer the right thing.
I mean, we have had like the CRS scoring system for a while, right? Like there is a way that we've historically decided whether or not somebody was a good candidate for Canada's economy. But that scoring is based on demand, and the demand lowered quite substantially, especially because of this the international student way of basically circumventing that system, where people thought that they could become PR very easily, and I think that now that's kind of becoming the case because of this. Have to reduce that group, and we don't have a ton of demand for new immigrants to Canada, like high quality. But I think, it's funny in that regard, because like for like the longest period of time, this was a place where we could attract really, really high quality talent. And that this whole thing has kind of broken that. And I think like the social contract and like the trust that they had in Canada's immigration system being really good among Canadians, but also among people moving here, like the branding of migrating to Canada is really, really in a rough spot right now.
Yeah. How long does that take to rebuild, right?
I think a lifetime.
Yeah. I know it took a while to build it in the first place. So,
and they blow it up in 2 years. It's crazy.
So one thing that I keep thinking about is maintaining values of houses while making housing affordable. So there's kind of like this, I know you have the answer, that's why you're on here. But one half, it seems like the younger generation, they want housing to be affordable. That's the headlines, and it's not going to be, so they're kind of despondent about this. And then the other side is like, a voter base that maybe, hey, the older folks who've owned real estate for years, they don't really want their real estate values to fluctuate downwards too much, because that's their retirement. This is kind of what they've been building up their whole life. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering do you see any path forward in Canada specifically with just kind of navigating this, and what are some things that can be done? I don't know if it's like supply or demand side fixes, or if it's wages going up. But just curious to get your thoughts on that.
So I think there's one easy way to do it, with which Pierre proposed in his run for prime minister, which was to basically introduce something similar to a 1031 exchange in the U.S., which wouldn't necessarily, like, because if we assume that okay, so a bunch of boomers own their primary residence, and so like primary residence is a little bit tougher, but Canada's already, among the most privileged in the world, in such that we're one of the only countries that doesn't have a tax on our primary residence. Like the U.S. has a tax on their primary residence, right, over a certain amount. So if we did like a 1031, because boomers own something like 60% of residential real estate investments, over 60% of residential real estate investments in Canada. So if we allowed them to liquidate those in a tax advantaged fashion that encouraged them to move that money into other Canadian investments, then it would relieve some of the burden of the pain of the price falling. So to first way to answer your question is prices do need to fall to become more affordable. That's the most efficient way to make housing more affordable, other than rates coming down substantially, which we know doesn't actually make housing more affordable. It just makes a payment more affordable. Mm-hmm. Or wages to go up, which has its own set of problems. You risk a wage price spiral, inflationary runaway, etc. So let's say prices come down, but boomers also get this 1031 style tax advantage, where if they're selling the asset, they can move the money somewhere else, and that offsets, the capital gain savings would, if you get 25% capital gain savings, it would very much offset, I think, for most people, a risk of like a 10% decrease in price. And I think you would see a big flood of people actually liquidating properties, because there are a lot of baby boomers who have their money trapped in real estate assets and don't want to sell because of switching costs and tax implications, because, it's like, why would I sell this rental property, as an example, when I could and take especially if you've owned it for like 30, 40 years and you're basically 80% of your value in the property is probably capital gain. Well, you can refinance 80% of your value out of the property tax free, and go buy another one or go buy some other investment. So why would you sell, right? But they probably don't really want that. I mean, my dad's a landlord. He has a bunch of rental properties, and I know he doesn't want to be driving around, fixing stuff and hearing from people and blah, blah, blah. And most people haven't really figured out how to make the whole economics and system make sense with the property manager, or most property managers, frankly, don't do a good enough job that it like becomes a good bit, like an efficient business. So, I think that there's an incentive for, and the supply is obviously there for boomers to want to move the assets, but there's too much friction right now. So that's kind of piece number one. Piece number two is like, if I was a policymaker, I just wanted a stroke of the pen to make everybody happy. This is what we're seeing, right? You can increase the value of properties while making housing affordable if you make more houses per property, right? And that's what we're seeing: multiplex policy, infill policy, missing middle, et cetera. And I actually think that that's probably the second most efficient way to do it after just letting the market drop. And honestly, from what I've seen from young people, at least in the way that they live and behave, I think people vote with their feet more than they do in actually voting and politics and stuff like that. And they vote with their feet and their dollars. 70 or 80% of Canadians live in urban areas. Young people want to live in smaller housing concepts. They don't want yards. A lot of them aren't having kids. And that's probably a consequence of something else. But so if they want to do this, okay, why don't we build housing where they can do that, right? Why don't we build multiplexes and then the boomers can sell. Now the boomers' lot value's gone up because you used to only be able to put one unit on it. Now you can put four. And the millennial who's consuming it gets a cheaper house because now there's 3 townhouses or 4 townhouses on that lot where there was once one big, boomer mansion.
Mark and I were trying to brainstorm this the other day because we're like, what happened first, right? Was it that, housing was unaffordable, so the next generation couldn't find a house with a yard and couldn't have a family, or was it they chose not to have a house with a yard and a family? And it's like, which one came first?
Big chicken and egg thing for sure.
Yeah, I'm a little more sympathetic to the because I always kind of scoffed at the like, wow, we can't afford kids. It's like, just have them and you'll figure it out, right?
I agree with that. That works for me. I do,
but I've seen seen videos from like South Korea, for example, where like you think we got unaffordability issues, right? Like there, it's certainly reflected in their fertility rates, which are
that's the lowest in the world, right?
Yeah. Like they're going to disappear in a couple generations.
I think we're like bottom 5 though.
Yeah. But when you look at, like a young person just working, like they can barely afford to get married, never mind have kids.
But yeah, it's such an interesting thought experiment. Sorry to interrupt you, but
no,
because it's like, is it just pure affordability? Because like there are poor people who know they can't afford stuff, but poor people have the most kids, right? And it's like, I actually think it's a financial literacy and an entitlement thing. Entitlement may be the wrong word for it, but like, look at China. Their birth rate fell because they pulled a bunch of people into the middle class. Same thing's happening in India right now, where a bunch of people got pulled out of poverty and into the middle class. And as we become middle class, we're like, oh, I have like this limited resource, which is quality of life. And I don't know if I want to share that with anyone. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Honestly, like, I mean, that's functionally the decision you're making. Like I'm personally of the opinion that having children is like the best thing that you can do in life. If you take theism or atheism both to their logical conclusions, one says we've got to populate the earth with more of God's children, and the other one says you're just a mammal that needs to survive and replicate, right? Both extremes would tell us that we need to have more kids.
And so the middle ground is have none.
Well, apparently, right? So this is where it's always become a fascinating thing from my perspective, and I think you really miss out on the experience of life by not doing it. But it's a sad and interesting question for society to be posed with, which is why do people not want to have children? I don't know if it's purely an affordability thing because poor people have more kids.
No, I agree with that. I'm just I'm a little more sympathetic towards that when cost of living is like ridiculous, and we're not there yet. And yeah, 100%. We're like have lots of kids, but when you look at even just global fertility rates, right? Like we're heading into sort of crisis territory, and people are like, well, the third world. But I mean, as they get lifted out of poverty or they migrate to richer countries where their standard of living increases, like you see that every time, right? Within a generation, fertility rates like plummet. So it might be like, 7 kids,
I guess
and boom, down to 2.
When you say like crisis, though, like what would really be the crisis? Like what is necessarily wrong with us having fewer people on Earth? Like if we know that the amount of resources that we're capable of, having like produced, and especially with automation and machine learning and artificial intelligence, like we'll eventually be capable of probably producing as much quality of life, let's call it, to be distributed. And if the amount of people consuming that quality of life is fewer, then the quality of life per capita, right, living standard on an individual basis should actually improve as a result of those two factors: fewer people, more production.
Yeah, I guess the thought is just maintaining standard of living. So if you look at, Canada, like how many people do we need just to maintain, like the city of Toronto, for example, or just the country and like all the infrastructure, et cetera, right? We're seeing people retire, and then fewer children. So we're supplanting that with immigration as the theory, but just sort of to maintain the especially economic engine that we have. And so, yeah, I agree with you. If we have less people in the world, that's not a disaster. But I think there's some financial implications, not taking into account increased productivity through AI, which I don't think that's a thing anyways, but through AI and technological improvement.
I guess like to answer your question, you have to kind of think about places where we've seen this happen already, like Japan or Italy, right? So, I mean, Japan has a very high quality of life, right? One of the highest standard of living in the world
for now.
And yeah, but I mean, is that simply because of their GDP per capita, or is it because Japan has 9 million empty houses as an example, right? Italy has the same thing. You can go buy a house and live like an amazing life in Italy for very cheap. And Italy and Japan are not countries you would call second or third world, right? And so do we really need, like, I think that the idea of the Western world and Canada and the US and a lot of Western Europe is we need more people, we need more immigration because we need a bigger consumption base, right? Like that's how we're going to grow our economy. Is it necessarily correct when you go and look at people who are 30 years ahead of us on this demographic collapse curve where people are living an amazing quality of life and you can go get a house for free? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that's kind of the opposite. And what happens if the whole world, because the entire world is going to go through this demographic collapse over our lifetime. Like, it's not even like our kids will deal with it. Like, by the time we all who are on this call die, China will have their population will have shrunk by like 20%. Like, yeah, right. India has just fallen below the replacement rate. So really, you've only got basically the most impoverished places in the world. So like Africa and a handful of places in South America that still have population growth above the replacement rate.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's interesting. I mean, we're trying to do our part, me and Brent, and you as well, right? Yeah, get above that replacement rate. But
quality of life. That's interesting too, because you focus inwards, right? Like, what is my quality of life? And then, for Mark and I, like as Christians, we're thinking, okay, well, I've been thinking about this a lot actually, like masculinity and, what does it actually mean to be a leader and a man and a father, and you're kind of in that same boat too, Daniel. But like, just this element of self-sacrifice, and when you mentioned entitlements, I right away thought like, okay, yeah, this generation has kind of been, basically handed everything, or they live in a really wealthy state that maybe they don't see. They kind of take it for granted, and then they grow up and they think, I deserve this and whatnot. And they kind of lost this element of sacrifice. So you might have a really high quality of life, but like, are you prepared to sacrifice those sorts of things for like more meaning in your life, right? Like, do your kids give you more meaning or joy than the work that it takes to put into them, right? Like, yes, your quality of life gone down now that you have kids?
Probably. But the reality is, like, that's not about me, right? Like, I really think that, as a society, we like when we become selfish is when we start to atrophy, right? That's how we die. And like
Just how do you articulate that to people who don't who don't see that?
so here's like my honest perspective on it is we like shouldn't actually sell the benefits of having children to people, right? Like I like people who don't get that intrinsically just shouldn't be parents. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like if you don't see the value and you don't feel like it's the right decision or financially or whatever, like that's I guess that's like a mature and responsible decision. And it's like it's, you know, your bloodline ends and like whatever that, or like your mammalian like little, you know, like your evolutionary thing ends. But that's like, that was your decision to stop that process because of the circumstances that you felt, and like that, maybe that was the right decision. There's no, you know, I wouldn't try and take it away from people. I just think that like, it's like a species making a decision, right? Like, and now my, you know, this path of the whole evolutionary thing is going to just end because I decided not to have children because of, so like financial tolerance as an example, or like risk, you know, the ability to take risk will start getting bred out of society because those people who just didn't want to take that risk don't have kids.
That's an interesting take.
I mean, well, this is becoming a really big thing, right? Like before there was like the idea of like evolution by natural selection, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Now there's like this idea of evolution by like sexual selection or even economic selection, right? Like, because if the middle class isn't having kids, then you have rich people and poor people who are having kids. And so disparity actually on a generational basis actually gets exacerbated every single time, right? Because you have more and more poor people having kids and more rich people having kids, and the middle class not having no kids. So,
yeah, I never thought of that.
Yeah, interesting. What this is a little bit off the beaten path, but like, I don't know when I look at my kids and things that I want them to learn, more and more I find it is not I don't know, it's not high tech or it's not skills. Like it's more, I don't know, traditional. Like I want them to learn, I don't know, how to farm or how to grow, you know, plants, or how to deal with animals, or you know, at some point maybe how to fire a gun or stuff like that. Like I don't know what. Again, this is way off the path. But like, what are you looking at with your kids? I don't know how old your kids are, but like,
Same
what are
stuff.
you trying to teach them?
Yeah, I think the same stuff. Like, well, I think that life is about balance, right? Like, they're going to grow up in a world where they are very exposed to all of this technology and stuff like that, and I'm not afraid for them to have exposure to it. But I also want them to be grounded in like our connection with planet Earth and nature, and you know, like the mystical oneness of all things. And I found that like the only thing that we have chickens here. The only thing that my kids get excited, first thing they want to do in the morning, go see the chickens. Like
really?
Both of them just run out. Yeah, they run outside and want to, you know, check on the chickens, feed them, let them out, hold them. You know, my daughter's just started riding horses. It's like she's obsessed with horseback riding and connecting with animals. So I would agree with you. Like those are all things. You know, I mean, we have archery here, and we've been doing that for a long time. And I grew up in a family that has hunted for, you know, generations now, and those are all things that are important to me, because I think that they, you know, that is what tethers us to what it means to be human, and it's very easy to lose track of what it means to be human in an increasingly digitized world. And so I think that balance is key. Like I spend most of my day on the computer. I mean, we all do, right? We're just sitting there punching, blah, blah, arguing with people on the internet, whatever. But I think the risk, like, to be honest, of getting really immersed in that world is that it's very easy to live a meaningless life, right? And not having kids is part of that too, I think. I mean, you can live with meaning without having children, but you know, if you're just spending your life like in this online like digital environment, and you don't like get to touch grass, as they might say, right? Like, I don't know, like it's a recipe to just be like, as they call it, like an NPC, right? Like non-player character. Like you're just going to go, and not everyone wants to be a main character, right? But like most people, but are they really going to be experience the important things in life that are, you know, happiness, fulfillment, probably more important than happiness, like fulfillment, right? Like real tangible human experiences, probably not, right? And I think these are part of the things that lead us to not wanting to have kids and stuff like that, where we aren't really we aren't really super connected of like what it means to be like have a human experience.
Yeah, I look at this also from like the design architecture kind of side of things. And that's why I kind of brought this up originally, was just, if let's say you're designing housing, right? It's like, do you design it to appeal to this, studio, 1 bedroom, small, compact, super tight, no outdoor space? And does that kind of infrastructure get incentivized through all of the policies, just the landscape that we have in this present moment, versus kind of turning the tide and saying, look, I'm going to make a decision because I believe, family formations are important. We need space for those to be possible. So maybe I can do my part in creating units that are bigger. Maybe it takes a little bit of an economic hit. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's actually better financially. But making those decisions, and I don't know if that's like every individual, architect, investor, everybody down the line has to, decide to change that. But yeah, curious to get your take.
Yeah, I think unfortunately we are very much ruled by the almighty dollar, right? Like, and the economics of it become the biggest decision in that regard. In most people in society, like, they don't have a connection with things other than money and the economy, right? And like that the having kids thing stems from it. And so it's like I think the whole thing is like a choice of what to worship, and that's most people are choosing that, and most developers are being incentivized to do whatever is going to produce the best return on a purely capitalistic perspective. There are developers who are doing stuff that's more family style, et cetera. And actually, very interestingly, I think people get punished for what I just described, right? So a lot of the developers who did make those decisions, not being thoughtful, not being considerate of other people, trying to make the smallest units possible so they could make the price on the pre-construction, like to kind of go full circle all the way back to the pre-cons, lowest price on the pre-construction sales sheet, that's going to get the most, you're going to sell the most of those units. And those are the guys who are getting smoked on closings, most failed closings right now. Most buyers who are are the biggest losses for buyers. Go look at developers like Tridel as an example. Tridel I don't think they sell any of those tiny studios. I think they have some small 1 bedrooms would be their smallest unit, and 2s and 3s. And who's the only developers that still have staying power in the Canadian market right now? I mean, I think that they're building stuff on spec at this point because they can afford to. And who else? Like, there's I don't know. You've got like them, Daniels. I don't know, like a couple of other groups that really have, like Mattamy, right? I think Mattamy was doing some of the studio stuff, but like,
we talked about this last time, right? The oligopoly.
Yeah.
Is just there's a handful of guys doing it.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, okay. So you talked about AI. And so you work with AI, right? Like,
yeah.
How do you keep on top
Mark,
of it?
don't you work with AI? I mean, you're old, but you surely work with AI too, no?
I'm sure I do. I just don't realize it because I'm so old that I just don't understand. Well, because every time, like, there's like, oh, there's a new AI, and like there's Grok 4 and Grok 3 went crazy, and but you're using this actually in a business setting. Like, I don't know, how do you keep up, and what are you doing actually with? Because when we say AI, it doesn't really mean the same thing to everybody, right?
Yeah, so I mean, fortunately, I don't have to keep up because I work at an AI company where I'm the dumb guy in the room. So like, I'm just the real estate guy. That's really why I know a lot about real estate, but like, I was brought there for that subject matter expertise, not to know anything about artificial intelligence or automation or any of that stuff. And so I guess I've kind of caught up by learning from being exposed to people smarter than me, which is probably the easiest way to get caught up on anything, right? Is find smarter people than you and absorb their knowledge. But I think it's interesting, right? Like, I mean, we're recording on Riverside right now. Riverside has a ton of AI integrations, right? It uses AI to edit your episodes, or it can, to generate show notes, stuff like that, right? So it's like as simple as stuff like that, or as complicated as, and there's a lot of things that kind of get faked as like AI. They're not actually AI. Like we do at our brokerage, we automate a lot of tasks. That's called an automation. It's not actually AI, but like we're selling AI solutions to realtors, right? So most of them would call that AI. But like booking showings as an example it's an automation, right? Like it uses some AI to like route the map, let's call it, and like and find the phone number and call the office and book the showing or whatever. But that we do home evaluations that use AI to like look at images. So again, AI is like, it's artificial intelligence, so stuff that a being would have to do, right? But then we have other stuff that like, automated sequences for like CRM where it texts people and calls people or leaves them pre-recorded voicemails that you recorded, sends them emails in a sequence. Like that's all just automation, right? That stuff's existed for ages. It's just kind of getting put into the spotlight because it's being packaged in with a lot of AI stuff. But how do I keep up with it? Honestly, like I'm very fortunate to be at this company and I'm immersed in the world, but I don't know how I would otherwise, to tell you the truth. I mean, I just don't have enough time to absorb all of those, like all of the content about this that's out there.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I mean, we manage a number of short-term rentals, and same thing. We have automation for everything, right? All the messaging, all this, and AI is working in there. But it's kind of like you look at the features that your software provides and be like, okay, let me add that one, let me add that one. But in terms of staying on top of everything, I don't know. So that's what we try to do, is find smarter people than us as well. But
yeah, I like buying online courses for a lot of this stuff. Like we have one for like we kind of accepted that we will never capture 100% of the realtors in the market, so we also just like sell like a DIY version of what we do to realtors. It's like, I don't know, it's a school group, so it's like, I think it's like $47 US a month, and it's like teaches you how to do everything that we've already done. It's just like for a lot of people it would end up taking thousands of hours to do that, and we're still kind of like really on the forefront, and there's a lot of like vaporware, like fake news in the AI space as well. So I think give it some time, and I think there will be good like bundles and packages of solutions, but definitely right now it's very hard to, and I think that like every growth has diminishing returns to scale. Like I know people are talking about how crazy AI will be and stuff like that, and I think that like to a degree that's correct, but it also like very much like, I don't know, machinery or agriculture, eventually it hits a point where it can't grow anymore, and once like we're rapidly getting there, it'll get there quicker than any other technology has. And at that point, it's like, it's very cheap to use. Everybody's kind of going to be using it. It'll sort of be just standardized, and that's what I think people need to be prepared for. Less than like everyone's trying to get on the forefront and just chasing the next shiny object, and it ends up being a waste of time for the majority of people.
So kind of from your standpoint then, like when, let's say 10 years from now, AI is ubiquitous, like everyone, all the real estate agents are using it, customers are really excited about it and pretty fluent in it, or totally oblivious like Mark and and just think it's a human being or something like that. What could it look like? Like is real estate going to change? Like real estate's always got this, it's a hard asset. It's tangible. That's why I like it. I could drive by it and whatnot. And that's not going to change because people need to live somewhere. But like the industry around it, like how do you see that evolving with AI, with some of these modern tools? Does that mean like the hundreds of thousands of real estate agents that are floating around
just in
here,
Toronto,
just in Toronto, are out of a job, or like how does this look?
I think their job will change. I think the people who adapt will be fine, and I think and that's like any industry, right? It's like if they invented something to cut people's hair, like automatically, like good barbers would still be in business. Automation or innovation is deflationary, right? And so it will be that in our profession as well. So agents, I mean, right now we can automate away about like 70% of the tasks that an administrative assistant would do for a realtor. And our goal is to be an administrative assistant, not an agent, right? So the tasks that agents still do, like showing properties, having deep knowledge of the asset class, providing customer service and delivering results, those are things that it would be very hard for AI to do. And even when it does, it's going to be like a Tesla robot, even if it's like wrapped in flesh. Like it's like not gonna, it's still going to be not the exact same as the human experience. But when agents can do 70% less work to get a deal done, consumers eventually know that. Well, agents who are on the forefront will realize that, oh, I can afford to charge a lot less for this service. And so you'll see fee compression. That's how it becomes deflationary, right? If I can do my job more efficiently, I can charge less money for it. And then consumers will start to demand lower fees. And so there will be like the market cap, total addressable market of the real estate industry will shrink, I think. And some entrants will leave because they're no longer making the same amount of money that they wanted to or expected to, and they'll go to a different industry or retire.
So, okay, so that's interesting because, we have precedents in like the Industrial Revolution, right? Steam engines and other, like weaving looms, things like that, where, and this has always been the argument, right? Like, don't be afraid of innovation because it's going to actually make people's lives better. But there is, I think, some evidence to show that the people who get put out of a job because of whatever, new technology, let's just say, they actually suffer. Like eventually there's new jobs that are, because that's the other side to this, Mark, is that innovation creates new jobs. Hey,
life is suffering, Mark.
It is. I agree. But where I'm going with this is UBI. So, because the argument is like, sure, maybe they automate all the car plants and, using AI and better technology and robots and whatever, all the people who worked in there, you're 50 years old, you've worked in the car and auto industry for, 30 years. You don't have any other skills. It's going to be really hard to, and especially in, a job market like we have, it's going to be hard for you to find something. So we need UBI. And we've seen the Senate has floated this bill. It's come back again. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on UBI? Do we need it?
I mean, I think we already like have iterations of this, right? Like, I don't know if it needs to be universal, because you don't need to give more capital to people who already have capital, right? Like, I don't know if you've read Thomas Piketty's book, but he talks about basically like how, he spends way too many pages just basically explaining how if the growth of capital outpaces the growth of wages, then the rich will always be getting richer than the poor. And right now, well, for the observable, history of the world that we're living in now, that's been the case, right? You can get a greater return on capital than a worker can get on wages. So it's not going to change anything. That's the thing, right? Like, all you're doing is satiating the suffering of people who are poor, the existing poor, right?
In the near term, too, the immediate,
right?
Yeah,
and so like, I think that it's a slippery slope. Like, look, I can empathize with the necessity of it, and I would say that it will likely have to happen from a policy perspective to avoid revolution, but I think that it becomes I think work gives us, it's part of the group of things in life that gives us meaning, right? I think work, I think having family, I think being connected to the earth, I think having a spiritual life as well. I think those things are all very important to the human experience. And so I think if you take away one of those pillars of human existence, it's a very slippery slope, right? If you, that's my fear. I think I have more fear about it than I do optimism about the concept of UBI. Yeah.
So what about Bitcoin? So,
yeah.
Does this obscure, random, magic internet money, digitally native thing that didn't exist 15 years ago have any impact on your thoughts and outlook here? So one of the things that I'm thinking is, like, I just read the article the other day. It was like the 5th largest asset in the world or something.
Right.
Just beat out Amazon. I don't know if it's like neck and neck or whatever, but that's crazy. And does it eventually kind of take over real estate? So for people who are kind of, I guess the current generation's been storing their wealth, the value of their time in real estate, because it's performed well. And I'm just curious to get your thoughts on, like, what does the next 10 and 20 years look like? Does Bitcoin fit into this? Does that strip away some of the value in real estate? And how are you looking at these things?
I really think that Bitcoin needs to heal a little bit probably before it can be of like societal value in the way that it intends to be, or originally it was in the spirit of what it was originally intended to be. I mean, I think that it's been very quickly centralized, and I think that it's become a bit of a casino, and I think that you go through these cycles. Like I've been in Bitcoin since like 14 or 15, right? So we'll go through it, but like when it becomes the hot new thing and everybody's talking about it, and then it kind of really deviates away from its original spirit. Like in 16, 17, we had the ICOs, and we had NFTs and blah blah blah. Like the more we can wash out all of the stupid ideas, the faster we can wash out all the stupid ideas that can come as a result of cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, the better. And I think that right now, like, Bitcoin was originally supposed to be detached from M2 money supply, but it tracks M2 money supply religiously. It's supposed to be detached from the government, but now you've got governments starting, strategic Bitcoin reserves. It was supposed to be detached from the financial system, but you've got Michael Saylor doing levered long, synthetic CDO, basically big short stuff on Bitcoin. So all of those things to me tell me that we're very far off of the original path of Bitcoin, and we need to get back. I think we will get back to it, but it doesn't have the promise that it did like 5 years ago. And I think that we need to shake a lot of that stuff loose before we get back to that. And I think that that's a necessary thing that needs to happen publicly, to like show people, hey, this is why we have to stick to the original plan. Right. Anyway, yeah, so that's my current philosophy on Bitcoin. Do I think that young people will store more of their wealth? I mean, my first answer to your question would be what wealth? Like, this is the big problem, right? Is like most like young people don't have wealth to store, and the reason why most people like housing and their primary residence is because in the Western world we are very bad at saving money. You look at the household savings rates in Asia versus Canada and the US. Asian people are way better at saving money than people in North America, and so. We like houses because it's a mortgage and it forces us to save money and it forces us to accumulate that capital into a hard asset. Until Bitcoin can serve those two things better, then it still relies on people dollar cost averaging and saving their own money. And saving their own money and then dollar cost averaging. And we've just proven economically that we are not responsible enough participants in the economy to do that.
Right. So yeah, when you say we're bad at saving, I feel like we're also not incentivized to save. Like I was told to save, my grandma would give me a birthday card and it said Toonie in it. And then I would, she would, as soon as I opened, she's like, you put that in the bank. And I was like, okay. Right. And then that's how I grew up. Right. And yeah, you kind of have that in you to, keen sense of, okay, I make this and then I save it. But I feel like I'm also punished for doing that if I literally just save it. So like we're in this little conundrum where I think the current generation, they don't have any wealth to save or to store, like not any massive capital, but they're building up, they're saving, but like they're also punished for saving. So it's like you can't get ahead, right? It's
another chicken and egg problem, right? Like we have a debt-based economy, whereas in Asia very much they didn't. And so they started during recently, basically post global financial crisis, but we're told that we can have everything we want now and pay for it for the rest of our lives through debt, right? Through mortgages. You go finance a car, finance a house, finance your vacation, wherever you want, finance your Uber Eats order now, apparently. And so the buy now, pay later culture of Western society is a big reason why people aren't incentivized to save, because they're actually, the economy tells them spend, and deal with it later rather than saving, right? And the way that you save is actually by paying off all of the debt that you accumulated in earlier in your life. So I agree with you. Yeah. Like we're disincentivized to save culturally.
Yes, we are. So that's a good spot to wrap things up. I want to honor your time, Daniel. Do you have any final thoughts before we go on anything that we've talked about?
Not really, just that we should do this again. I feel like I could have gone for another hour. I love having chats with you guys. Easily. So, it's always nice to talk to smart folks who are thinking about and asking the big questions.
Yeah, well, when we meet those folks, we'll let you know. Yeah, no, it's been awesome.
Humble too.
We try. Yeah, same thing. Like I feel like we've just gotten started, but yeah, we'll do this again for sure. So, where can people listen to more of you? What's your podcast?
Yeah, I have a podcast called the Canadian Real Estate Investor Podcast. It's Canada's #1 real estate podcast. It's a little different. It's kind of like, it's just typically two hosts. We have like the odd guest on, but it's two hosts usually just doing like research-based content. So Nick and I sit down and nerd out on real estate for 45 minutes at a time. And yeah.
Is that weekly or bi-weekly?
Twice a week, yeah.
Twice a week, yeah. All right. Well, keep it up because I know there's a lot of listeners and they appreciate it. So
yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work to put that together, so appreciate it. And yeah, thank you for making the time to come on.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we will see you again. And to our listeners,
steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
If you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To learn more about the show, head on over to twostewards.ca and explore our free resources. To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@twostewards.ca.
We will see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.
Nailed it.